I had planned that we will start with the quiz because that was my point, that we will start with the quiz and have the session. But I see we are only five of us, including me. So can I request Dr. Snehal and Dr. Varsha to have their cameras on? Dr. Varsha, could I request you to have your camera on so that I can see you on the screen?
Sorry, I'm in the conference today because I
Okay,
have come for the Bombay Ophthalmic Conference
okay,
at Mumbai. So I cannot start my camera, but I am there, ma'am.
okay, fine.
Only
Thank you. Thank you for being there. But then what do everybody suggest? Should we wait for the 5 minutes?
We should start.
we can wait.
We can start, yeah.
So what I'll do, I will not hold the quiz immediately, because quiz I wanted everybody to participate, because that was the, see, this is what happens. And this is one skill I think as facilitators we should have, that is cognitive flexibility and, be ready for anything. So we are going to actually discuss how do you really facilitate a program, and what are the things that can help us making our program successful, enjoyable, engaging, and useful for everyone. Useful for everyone. So we have two more people joining in. Maybe we'll wait for another 10 minutes and do the quiz after everybody is there, because that quiz can be taken even little later.
Yeah, okay.
So today's session is about facilitation skills. So why do we call it facilitation and why not training? Because normally we are in habit of calling training. Why are we calling it facilitation skills? If I may ask everyone to think and reply, you can unmute and speak. Snehal, what do you say? Dr. Varsha, what do you say? Of course, Dr. Asim may be knowing it already. Dr. Atul, what do you say? Why do we call it facilitation?
It's an intermediary thing, I think. It's an intermediary thing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Sorry, but I have no idea regarding the facilitation.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad that you're coming out very honestly that I have no idea, because most of us really do not know the difference. Even I did not know initially. I had to really understand why are we calling it facilitation and why not a training program, and what is the difference between the two. And the moment you'll have this clarity, your approach will completely change. Yes, sir, you were saying something. Go ahead.
Giving importance to the ability of the participant.
Wow. So I think training, like when we do, we have an idea, okay, this is something I want to share with my audience. It could be a knowledge, it could be a skill, it could be capacity building or whatever. But when we say facilitation, we know the audience already has a set of knowledge or skill or information. So I just can't go and say, okay, you don't know this and I'm going to train you into this. Like Dr. Silva was just not telling. And I framed my question like this, that what is the normal blood sugar range? Everybody was annoyed with this question because they said, are you doubting my knowledge or do you doubt my competency? So we really have to keep these nuances of training in mind when you're dealing with adult audience. Now studies have shown it's not just the adult audience, even with children. When you try to train them, they don't like to learn from you. Rather, if you just create an environment where you help them acquire the skill that you want them to, they will be, they'll be quicker to adopt. So facilitation is basically facilitating the learning. So you can't actually, if you go by Socrates' statement, he says you can't teach anybody anything. Very clearly, if you look at the statement that he gives, he says that you can't teach anyone anything. You can only make them think. And if you're able to make them think, there is a possibility that they may accept what you are saying or they may take what you are offering. So basically, as a facilitator, you have to foster curiosity, interest, create discussion where people sit and talk and reflect and realize, okay, I need to know this. I really do not know it very well. So as a facilitator, your job is more like sitting in the background and creating an environment So you're a catalyst, basically. We are trying to, and you have a very clear purpose, goal in your mind. You have the content ready with you. So what you do, you create an environment where you help people, find out what they want to find out. And then at the right moment, you suggest that the information in the right opportunity. So that is where they'll be more willing to learn or accept what you offer. So to start with, if you say, okay, I'm going to teach you this, or I'm going to train you into this, people may not accept what you are saying, and they may have 110 doubts. So especially the kind of audience you are going to deal, it could be doctors, it could be nurses, it could be paramedical staff, it could be anybody for that matter. So if you know these basics of how you really need to, make sure that you can engage your audience and create interest, you'll see your program will actually become a great success in its, in its own style. So how is adult learning different from maybe you can say the other age groups? Is it different?
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is.
How is it different? So if it was,
I feel, ma'am,
I'll give you
ma'am,
an
I feel in
example.
adult,
If you were to suppose, if you were to take a session for a school children, for a set of school children, and talk about eye diseases, you will have one, format ready. But if the same thing has to be discussed with another set of adults, what difference will you have? Keep in mind.
Ma'am, probably two things. One thing is कि there are two set of different audiences. Probably childrens are raw, and they are probably open and acceptable. They will interact more. One thing, they won't have any presumption or reading or background knowledge about it.
Wow.
And probably adult will have, so it is difficult, and you probably will have to think more. One part of it, and the other part, probably with kids we need to make it more simpler in their language. And for adults, probably that will be that won't be a barrier, and in language a little bit more leniency will be there in kids in case of adults.
Agreed. Dr. Snehal, you wanted to say something. Please go ahead.
yeah, the same. What Dr. Ashwini explained, that only I just wanted to say that children are very raw, so we can tell them like more easily. I feel in adults it's little difficult.
So with adults, it's difficult.
That reminds us the comment by Winston Churchill. He said, I am ready to learn, but not always would be like to be taught.
Could you repeat this once again, sir?
I am ready to learn, but would not like to be taught.
True. Would not like to be taught. So I think in nutshell, he has actually said why we find it difficult to teach adults. So you can, even if you take this example of the program that we are running, some of you are always, participating, keen to join on time and have your camera on and try to answer. Some of you are not able to do that. There could be many reasons, which we'll be discussing maybe towards the end. But at the same time, as a facilitator, you have to manage both the situations and still go on with your program. So I'm going to share some understanding with you about how do adults learn and what is the difference between adults and any other category of this thing. So we'll go by the acronym. Let me share a picture with you. Give me a second. Okay. Is this picture visible to you?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes.
So thank you. So awareness versus consciousness. What is the difference between awareness and consciousness? So 1 second. I can see Dr. Navanil join today. So welcome, Dr. Navanil. I think today is the first session you are joining, if I'm not wrong.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Welcome to the session. And please participate. And whatever answers you have on your mind, you are more than welcome to share with all of us. Okay. So what is the difference between awareness and consciousness? What do you see in this picture?
Yes, somebody is holding someone's hand
Okay, great.
to cross the road.
So we see this placard usually on the roadside. That indicates that there's a school nearby.
Yes.
And the moment we see this board, what comes to our mind?
We have to drive slowly,
We should drive
carefully.
carefully, slowly.
How many of us immediately slow down and make sure that we drive very carefully and slowly? Some of us do it.
All good.
Yeah. So the difference between awareness and consciousness is you may be aware by seeing this board that there is a school nearby, so I need to slow down. But how many of us become conscious of it and actually apply this? So problem with adults is when you ask them something, you will see most of them will know everything. There is nothing new that you're going to share with them. But how many of them actually will be applying? I'm really sorry. I have a bad throat. Today, I will request all of you to do the talking. And I will listen. So, for example, we all know that we need to treat our staff with respect. How many of us really do? Give me a second, please. Sorry. I'm really sorry. Yeah. So we all believe that we need to treat our staff and subordinates with respect. But how many of us actually genuinely practice? So that is the difference between awareness and consciousness. So we all know that we are supposed to be nice to our staff. We need to treat them with respect. But when it comes to actually doing, how many of us are actually following the game rule? That is awareness versus consciousness. Second is difference in learning. All of us have different primary learning style. Some of us like to listen and understand. Some of us prefer a visual, representation. So I shared a questionnaire with you. Have you all done it?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
So who all have done? Can you write yes in the chat box so that I know how many of you have done it? Please write yes in the chat box. Mhm. 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 Okay, great. So just count the number of A, B, and C. Good number of you have done, so we can look at it. count the number of A, B, and C. Wonderful. Very interesting result, Dr. Chakrabarti. I'm waiting for others to write their result in the chat box. Mhm. Very nice. Dr. Atil, again, interesting representation. Okay, Dr. Ashwini, interesting result. Okay. Dr. Navneil. So if you have highest number on A, then you prefer visual representation. So you like to interact with the world through visual representation. If you have highest number on B, then you are an auditory person. You like to listen and understand. And if you have highest number on C, you like emotional representation. That means you like to interact with the outside world and take it in through in emotional representation. And I'm glad to see a lot of you have high C. So Dr. Chakrabarti is 10C, Dr. Atul 8C, Dr. Ashwini 7C, Navneil 10C, again Dr. Snehal 7C, Dr. Sumanta 1C and 2B. What about others? Is something missing in your answer? Okay. Again, Dr. Varsha 10C. So you can see it yourself. A lot of us like to have emotional representation. So when you are designing your program, when you're designing your session, it's very important to keep in mind that we will have people who will like to have different kind of representation. So when you prepare your content, you have to make sure that you have a mix of all this. And adults differ in their learning style. So one learning style will not work for everyone. Which is your dominant hand, right or left? Right, right. So write your name with your right hand. I hope you have a copy and a pen with you. Write your name with right hand. And now write your name with your left hand. In case if right is your dominant hand. How many of you are finding it difficult to write with your left hand? Difficult? Difficult.
I think Sabyasachi should not.
Does he use both his hands?
No, no,
The
his
name means ambidextrous, so ideally I should not, but I'm struggling.
So we take time to unlearn something that we have learned that becomes our second nature. But if we are asked to do something differently, we take time to unlearn and learn something new. So with adults, that will be another challenge. Like Dr. Ashwini said and Dr. Snehal said, that it's easy to teach children because they are raw. They will accept whatever you say. But problem with adults is they have already learned something. So if you try to teach them something differently, they will take time to unlearn what they were doing earlier and then learn something new. So they'll take time to unlearn. And the next is they like to share their experience. And one of the best ways to engage your audience is if you can prompt them to share their experience. And everybody comes with rich experience, with rich knowledge, provided you are able to tap that and make your program a success by having their experience sharing in the program. And the last is they take time to change. So when you teach them something or tell them something, don't expect them to immediately start applying what you have learned. So if I may ask you, how many of you have started greeting your patients consciously? Write yes in the chat box. Or how many of you have started building rapport with your patients? Again, consciously, that I have to build rapport with my patient. I'm so glad I can see a lot of yes. What a wonderful change. I'm sure you must be already doing, but now you know the benefit of it. So you will keep in mind that this has to be brought in. But a lot of time you will have audience who will not immediately be ready to change or to apply whatever you say. So you really need to have patience when you are teaching them or training them or facilitating any training, because they will take time to change. They will take time to change. So if I may put it like this, it's an acronym. Adult is an acronym here, that they are aware, but when it comes to consciously apply, you will see there's a big gap. And adults differ in their learning style. So we have to keep in mind when we are planning our training. We have to also remember that they'll take time to change and to unlearn. So give them time to unlearn what they have already learned for years. And then, of course, they like to share their experience. Therefore, we should make sure that we engage them by asking them to share their experience and also enriching your program. At the same time, as I said earlier also, that they will take time to change. So don't be in a hurry to change them overnight. They will take time to change, and be patient when it comes to seeing the result of what you have done with them. Some more principles that can help us in adult learning. The first one is, it's very important. They want to know, they really need to be prepared to learn. So before you actually implement something, you have to actually create eagerness to learn. You have to create why they need to learn. How is it going to benefit them? What is in it for me? That is what will be their question. So make sure that your content has that element right in the beginning, or when you pitch in your program and when you talk to them about any training program. If you can showcase them, how are they going to be benefited by participating in the training, you will have more participation coming from them. Then adults learn when their experience and knowledge is acknowledged. As I said earlier, and I'm repeatedly saying, everybody comes with huge experience, learning, background. So they like to share. And if you can relate it, if you acknowledge it, if you make them share that with others, they'll slowly get engaged and become interested to participate in the program. And they are, they learn rapidly when the results are satisfying. For example, you tried building rapport. So if I may just stop sharing and ask you, what difference did you see, or what benefit did you see when you tried building rapport in the outcome? If I may ask one or two of you to share. before we started this session, Dr. Asim shared his experience of one of his nurse who had attended patient counselor training. So he was sharing that how it changed the way she handled. But I want you to share your experience. How many of you found it interesting or useful to build rapport with the patient, or making some difference? Did you find it making some difference, Dr. Sachi?
Yes.
Okay. Dr. Snail, you found it making some impact.
Yes, ma'am.
So if you found it useful, if you found it interesting, I'm sure you will try to apply whatever we learn in the next session. But if you had not found it useful, if you had not found it interesting, then probably you will say what we are learning is not making much of sense. So we learn rapidly when the results are satisfying and when we think it's bringing what we are looking for. And then adults learn by doing. So keeping these in background, we have to remember that they will only learn when they trust you. So you have to, all through the training program or your sessions, you'll have to make sure that whatever you share is trustworthy, your conduct is trustworthy, your delivery is trustworthy, but it comes with time. So that means we have to make sure that we are able to communicate the purpose of the training program. And it's not just that we want things to improve, we want to help them. That is one understanding they need to have. Then creating a need to learn is most important. If you can help them see how are they going to be benefited, they will be happy to participate. Engaging is very important. So just lecturing and just showing some slides and just doing the discussion, one-sided discussion, is not going to help. So you really need to engage them through activities, through participation, through various means. And then of course, the climate should be friendly, informal, respectful for everyone to participate. Everybody should feel that, oh, we are respected and wanted and given due respect in the program. And then relating their experience makes them interesting. This I've told a number of times. That's because you really need to make sure that they feel like sharing what they're going through. And then ultimately they will come up with their challenges also, with the difficulties they are facing. And then of course, the trainer or facilitator needs to be thorough with the subject knowledge. I think that is one thing that will build trust. If you lack knowledge, if you lack the in-depth understanding of what you are teaching, you're likely to lose ground in front of your audience. So you really need to be thorough with your subject knowledge and training pedagogies to engage all kind of learners. So going further from it, there are some guidelines that will help us in effective facilitation. For example, this we have discussed in the last session also. Couple of things that I would insist that please ensure before you actually conduct a program. That is, for example, if you can physically visit the place where you're going to do the training, that will really give you a picture how you're going to use that space. If you can't physically go, for example, if the training is in another hospital, then ask them to send the picture of the place so that you can visualize what kind of arrangement you're going to make in sitting, or what kind of challenges you can expect. So asking the coordinator of the training to send the picture of the place will give you an idea what kind of sitting arrangement will be possible there. Of course, basic things like a whiteboard, projector, audio, video, wall clock, water facility, name tag, all these I have discussed in the last session also, but these needs to be available much before the training program, and not at the last minute we say, okay, get us pen and notebooks to make notes. I think, like, for example, you're attending this session, having a diary and a pen in your hand is your responsibility. Rather, having a separate notebook, which should have the title of Master Trainer Program, because when you want to refer the notes, you will have those notes readily in one place. So these are the things that we need to ensure. Now, coming to the preparation part, how much of preparation is required? Any idea about the proportion? How much of preparation should we do for any program in terms of number of hours, or in terms of number of minutes, whatever? Any idea?
I think percentage wise, Preparation takes 60%.
Sorry, please explain that once again.
Yeah, preparation takes 60% at least.
Okay. If I ask you ratio wise, how would you say? Like, for example, for 1 hour of session, how many hours
Okay.
of preparation you should do?
I think at least 4 hours.
So maybe somebody seasoned like Dr. Asim, maybe you would require 4 hours of preparation. But how about everybody like who's not still aggressively into training, but they wish to ultimately take this up as one of the responsibilities? Now, what do Dr. Snail, Dr. Chakravarti, Dr. Navanil says? Minimum 8 to 10 hours, a month at least. in a month, but how many hours? How many hours a day?
Ma'am, it depends upon the that we have about the topic. If we have the thorough knowledge of the topic, then we will require some less hours of preparation
Correct.
because we are already thorough with it. But if we have no knowledge that we are about zero knowledge about it, so we may require more than 5 to 6 days to go deeply into that subject and then present that subject to the audience.
Absolutely. So if I may give you a rough ratio, it is 10:1. For 1 hour of session, at least 10 hours of preparation. I agree with you and with Dr. Asim also. If you have worked on a topic and you have taken number of sessions, maybe you will require lesser time. But let me also tell you, if you will revisit your content with sufficient time, you will actually be able to refine your content every time. You will have a lot of new ideas of how do you communicate whatever you want to communicate. And especially when you're keeping the audience in your mind, if you remember the last session, we also said that we need to know the age of the audience, qualification, experience, position in the system. So again, you need to really revise your content, keeping that in mind, because sometimes if you're dealing with very senior people, you really need to deliver the same content very differently. So a general thumb rule is 10:1. If you're thorough, then maybe you need lesser time. Yes, Dr. Asim, you want to say something? Please go ahead.
Yeah. It totally depends on the background.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I can see some answers in the chat box also. Dr. Sumanta says 5 hours of preparation and few days for PPT. Absolutely, I agree, because you require first to brainstorm and create the content and then prepare the PPT. Then Dr. Navanil says 1 week. Dr. Ashwini says a lot of brainstorming. Dr. Chakravarti says a month at least. And Dr. Ashwini says minimum 8 to 10 hours. Yes, I agree with you, because you really need to prepare thoroughly. And then if I may just ask you, what should be the quantum of knowledge you need to have in the subject? And how many times should you know about that subject? Any idea or guess? I know this is a very strange question I'm asking. How much more should you really know about your subject?
3 times.
Very close, very close. Actually, yes, almost 3 to 4 times. Again, Dr. Sumanta says depends upon audience. Agreed. But a lot of time you will have audience, they may ask you something. And if you don't know that, okay, Dr. Varsha says you didn't get my question. My question was that, for example, if I need to talk to a set of audience, what all questions can I expect from my audience, which I should be able to confidently able to answer? And for that, I really need to know much more than what I'm going to present. Almost 3 times. Almost 3 to 4 times you should know about your subject, so that in case if you're asked a question, you can handle those questions effectively. And then another point, keep in mind, activities are going to take longer than you plan. You may think that this activity will take 15 minutes. Trust me, it will not take less than 30 minutes. Role plays, normally we keep 15 minutes to 30 minutes. It takes almost 45 minutes to 1 hour. Because when the discussion starts, you don't feel like stopping them, because when they're sharing their thoughts, you want to allow them to share what they want to share. And also you expect a lot of learning in that discussion. So remember, you will take much longer than what you think. And then also plan for both smaller and larger than anticipated group. A lot of time you will think you will have this size of participant or this size of audience. The group may be larger. I remember I was asked to take a session for Delhi Judicial Academy. They were judges for whom I had to take a session. So I normally take session for them, and the audience is usually 50 to 60, newly appointed judges and their induction program. I would take some training. I prepared my activities and everything according to that anticipation. When I went for the session, there were only 3 officers. They were officers for some special program, and they needed to be trained. So I had to be really, I had to really change my pedagogy to match this. So you have to really plan for both smaller and larger than what you anticipated. And then when you are going to, let me share the screen. And then when you are going to, this we have discussed already. When you are going to conduct the program, establish the ground rules. That's very important. For example, you really need to very explicitly say that please put your phone on the silent mode, because a lot of time you will see people, they will forget to put their phone on the silent mode. So you may in between hear their, ringtone or something. So set the ground rules clearly in the beginning so that everybody knows what we are supposed to go around. And then we need to orient the group to the time frame and purpose of the program so that everybody knows what we are going to do and how we are going to do. How about training format? What should be the training format? Can somebody share their thoughts about their understanding on training format? For example, what should be the sequence of the delivery? One is simple to complex. That means you start your session from a simple concept, taking it to a complex concept. Any example? Any example of sequence training? Like, for example, before you actually allow your students to operate, you actually make them learn suturing, because this is something that they will have to really do later on. So that means if you're introducing a concept, use the simplest form of it and then take it forward so that they can relate with the content. Then concrete to abstract. What exactly we mean by concrete to abstract? Can somebody explain? So how many of you are familiar with the idea of writing SOPs? What is SOP?
Standard operating procedures.
Okay. So how many of you are comfortable writing SOPs? Not an easy thing.
We all had to do while undergoing the NABH assessment process.
Absolutely. But
Yeah.
how many of us could really sit and write our SOPs for our own department or for the task that we do?
No.
It's difficult. I know it's difficult because we are not familiar with the idea. So when I talk about SOPs with my audience, then I have to tell them that, what exactly we mean by SOP. So I usually ask them, do you make a cup of tea? And they'll say, yeah, we make. How do you make it? I'll ask them to explain. They'll say, okay, we'll take a saucepan, add this much of water, put it on fire, and put it on, and then when it heats. So they'll tell me all these steps. So I said, can you write it down? So they'll write it down for me. Okay, this is what we do. And then I would say, you have written SOP of making a cup of tea. So similarly, can you now write an SOP of a particular procedure? So what I'm saying, something they are familiar with, something they already know. I'm sorry. So when you plan your training program, start with something concrete, something that they are familiar with, something they already know, and then take it to unknown. So, for example, you want to teach them 7 steps of washing hands. So first you will ask them, okay, show me how do you wash your hands normally. So that is something that they do regularly. So they'll do it in front of you. And then from there, you take them to actually telling them the actual steps of washing hands in a healthcare setup. So what I'm trying to say, similarly in your training format, make sure that you don't bombard them with the difficult communication training to start with. Start with simple things, something that they do on everyday basis. Take examples from their real life situation and then build on it. So that is the sequence. And the second format is steps. That is, tell them what to do, how to do, show them so that they can visually learn, and then let them do. So for example, now in the future session, we will be doing a lot of role plays. We'll be watching some videos. Then we'll be discussing how exactly we should be handling. And then we will be doing practice session to see how exactly we are supposed to be doing it. So that can also be the training format that you can use in your trainings. Now, when it comes to basic presentation structure, what is the basic presentation structure? Any idea? It's very simple. We all know. Opening the message, for example, any training, you will open the training, you will deliver the message, you will also provide some evidence, and then you will close the session. This is what I think we all follow when it comes to training or any program that we hold. Now, we are going to discuss each point a little bit in detail. For example, opening, of course, all 4 are very important, but opening is very important. Why is it important? Why is opening important?
Just to engage them.
Absolutely. So that means opening and closing have to be really very, very powerful. Why? Because that is where your audience is going to actually judge you the most. That is where they're going to see. Why do we see trailers before we go for a movie? Because
just to have some idea
about it. Similarly, your audience will be actually critically evaluating you, judging you based on how you open your session. So each segment, of course, has to be done carefully, but opening is one of the most important segment of your presentation. So it's very important to make an impressive openings. Can you think of some ways? Write in the chat box how to open your session. Write in the chat box. Starting with this story, absolutely with this story. Showing some interesting video. Start with a familiar anecdote. Yes. Wonderful. Wonderful. Waiting for some more answers. Greeting in local language. Okay. Brief introduction, giving examples. Yes, it's also a good way. Asking a practical question. Yes. Again, when you ask a question, they can be really, suddenly start thinking. They get engaged with you, thinking for the answer. Yes. So there are so many good ways to actually, probably with the story. Yes. Connect with them. Yes. Connect with them, definitely. But that's the purpose. But how do you make sure that they get connected with you? The idea is that they have to engage with you. So like most of you have covered everything that we are talking about and we are going to talk about. The idea is that, Dr. Ashwin is written creating emotional impact by story, video to engage. Yes. So very, I mean, we have covered almost everything that I was about to share, but just to see, yes, you could actually make sure that your opening is really very impressive. You could start with a startling statement. For example, if you said that every year 250,000 patients die because of medical errors in US, I'm sure your audience will be suddenly very, shocked. Oh, so many patients die because of our mistake. And this is a study of US. We haven't done any study in our country. I don't know if we did, where we will stand. Or it could be an interesting quote, something like the single biggest problem in communication is the illusion that this has taken place, said by George Bernard Shaw. Or it could be an interesting picture. Can you figure out number of faces in this picture? Can you figure out? How many faces do you see in this picture? Write in the chat box. How many faces do you see in the picture? Is it only one or two or three? Many. Two, zero. Dr. Sabyasachi, didn't see a picture? Face?
She's turned in the opposite direction, so I can't see her face.
No, what exactly we mean? That looks like a face. Okay, 5. Oh, Dr. Navanil, 5. I really need to understand from you, from where did you see this 5? Because I could not see baby face and an old lady face. Yes, Dr. Snehal, I agree with you. Even I could see two faces. One is the face of this girl, baby girl, and this is the face of an old lady. Yes, this is what I could do. So the idea is, if you show something like this, your audience will suddenly become interested and they will engage with you. Or you could share a dramatic incident that this happened with you and that left you startled. It could be sharing your experience that the other day I had gone there and I visited this place and this is what happened with me. And you will see, because it is something the audience has no clue what exactly was your experience. So they'll become interested in listening to you. I'm extremely sorry for this nonsense, but not able to. Or it could be very authentic data that can engage your audience. For example, in this, you can see this study says that from April 21 to February 22, 97 surgeries were performed on the wrong part of the body. This is a report of NHS. And 90 foreign objects were left in the body after procedure. So automatically it will, bring your audience closer to you. And please remember, well begun is half done. So it's very important to make sure that your opening is very impressive. Coming to the presentation part, I think one thumb rule that you have to remember: content has limited value. Experience has long-lasting impact. Focus on creating multiple learning opportunities through experiential learning. So even if you deliver less content, it's all right. But if you're able to create experience, trust me, they are likely to, learn more from you. They'll become more interested and curious in the subject. Ask questions and respond to them. Acknowledge the answers that your audience gives. Never ignore the answer. Even if it is wrong answer, appreciate for the attempt. It may not be the answer that you were looking for. A lot of time, audience may not know what you are looking for. It's perfectly all right. And you're no one to judge them. If you just say that was really nice effort from your side, but I think this is what exactly I meant by this, and go ahead. But appreciating their effort to answer is something that will encourage their participation. So you can actually ensure participation in many ways. A lot of time you can vary the group size. For example, it could be that you engage the entire group in the activity, or maybe you could ask people sitting on one table to participate with each other, or you could have 3 people in one group and make them do the activity. Especially when you will do role plays, ask somebody to become a patient, ask the other person to be the doctor, and the third one, doctor or counselor or optometrist or whoever is your audience, and third one to be relative. So it could be like 3 people practicing together, or it could be like you ask them to practice in pair. But keep changing the strategy. Let it not be just one person with another. Keep changing the group members so that more and more people engage with each other. Change your approach also. So approach could be, maybe you ask Socratic questions, which actually brings about, desire to learn more. So it will be thought-provoking question. You could ask critical questions where you give them a puzzle or you give them a situation and ask them to find the answer. Again, they will get interested. You could ask creative thinking questions where you ask them to think and write and share with others. So they'll get engaged in creating something. Or it could be role plays very commonly that we get to see. Or it could be even case study. Case study approach is again a very useful approach, especially with adult educated audience. They really enjoy, learning from from a case study approach. And a lot of management institutes, they actually teach their audience or train their audience through case study approach, because they think that's where the actual brainstorming happens. So even activities you can vary. You could think of quiz, flip charts, reading, demonstration, reports. And you must be seeing that we are trying to have more different kind of pedagogies, and we are trying to do a program. And then recognition. I think even this has to be, there should be a variation. So appreciating, applauding, asking everybody to clap, or saying thank you. These are different ways that you can, change your recognition. So this is an online session, so probably that kind of thing may not be practically 100% possible. But then when you will do your on-site program with your audience, live audience, you will have a different kind of an experience. So when you are facilitating the program, it's very important to ensure everyone's participation. A lot of time people get disengaged. So even here we can see some of us are having our cameras on, some have switched off the camera. Problem is you don't know whether they are with you or not. Keep an eye on the direction of the group. A lot of time you can actually sense that the group direction is not in alignment with you. They are not with you. And that should immediately, give you an idea. I really need to change my pedagogy. I really need to integrate something. So watch your group's non-verbals. If you see them going tired, or feeling bored, or if it's especially if it's a content-heavy training, then they are likely to become suddenly bored. So having some energizer, some teaser in between, some physical exercise in between can help you immediately change the environment. There's a possibility of subgroups. You will see people sometimes, who are not with you, and they actually try to influence others also and form subgroup who would not be keen to attend your session. So you really need to handle those subgroups very carefully, and pick your battles carefully. A lot of time, your audience is not interested. Some of them are not interested, and they form a subgroup, and they also try to influence others and try to argue with you or create a doubt about your topic or issue or concern that you're talking about. But should you really argue with them or convince them? This is what we are going to discuss in an interesting way when we talk about how do you handle disruptive audience. That's probably the most interesting part of this. I wanted to start with this quiz to start with. Maybe we'll take it right here itself. So how do you really handle these things? And especially if there are disagreements, how do you handle it? Let me stop sharing. I'm going to share a quiz with you in the form of a poll. Give me a second if it is there. So I'm sharing the quiz with you in the poll section. So you have to answer this, and we'll discuss it in a while. So I've launched. Please go ahead and take this quiz. So this is about people who try to disturb your session or their behavior is disruptive. How do you handle them? I hope you're able to take this. So I can't see any answers coming in. Are you answering? Okay, yes, now I could see, yes. I've received only 3 answers. I've received 4 answers, answers from 5 people. Yeah, 6. Yes, thank you. I've received 7 answers. Waiting for 2 more to complete. So what do you see in the answers? For the first one, for the late arrival or late arrivals, some of you have said use humor to make a point. If it's somebody senior to you, will you be able to use humor to make a point? Although I know a lot of time using humor can lighten the environment and you can go on. Again, you have to be careful. People who are talking, ignore. And some of you said, have them take your place. Your program will be hijacked. Your session will be hijacked. People who are long-winded, interrupt. Most of you have said, remind them of ground rule. Again, if it's a senior person, experienced person, can you remind them of ground rules? One track mind. Most of you have said prompt group for other ideas. Okay. Agreed. Non-participating, use brainstorming, single them out. Some of you have said single them out. If you single them out, they will go out of your class. And if you make an example of them again, they'll feel targeted. Side conversation, yes. Stop group discussion to listen. I think mostly when you do this, they become aware that they are disturbing. Then standing next to the talker, maybe sometimes it helps, but if it's a senior person again, can you really go and stand on their head? I don't know. Multitaskers, remove offending items. My goodness. 3 of you have said remove offending items. You'll take away their phone or laptop. Actually, you cannot. Remind them of ground rules. Turn over to group. Okay. Snide remarks. Employ sarcasm. Ask him to elaborate. Seek group reaction. Usually, if you ask them to elaborate, you are actually getting into an argument with them. They will never give up. So usually, if you'll ask the group to react, you will see there will be people in the group who would not agree with them and they will automatically get discouraged. People who are using phone, remind them of ground rules. Yes. Dark cloud, again, get their input. Shift issues back to the management, cut them off, get their input. Thank you. I think that was wonderful. So we are going to talk about this in a while, how exactly this whole idea of disruptive audience. I think I shared with you that I had a,
Ma'am, sorry to interrupt you.
Yes, please.
Can you please explain the question 6, 7, and 8? What do they really mean?
Oh, 1 second. Let me open the 6, 7, and 8. So 6 is sidebar conversation. People who will sit and talk to person sitting next to them, left or right. So in between, they would actually be doing some kind of whispering or talking. You can see that they are talking. You will not be able to exactly understand what they are talking, but they will just try to, say something. Tea breakup hogi, kitni der aur chalna padega, or maybe they'll be commenting on your session or about you or on the content, but you will not be able to actually hear that. That's sidebar conversation. 7 is multitasker, who will sit in the program, but they will be doing some things beside it. They'll be taking a phone call, maybe simultaneously typing, or maybe reading a book, or doing something which is not related to the program. So that is multitasker. You ask 6 and 7, and which one?
8th one, ma'am.
8. Snide remarks. Snide remarks is they give a kind of, they pass remarks that are not, desired in a group setting. So they may say, who says this? Who told you this? I mean, they may even challenge what you are saying. So those remarks can be very upsetting, especially for the facilitator. So I wanted to share that with you, that for me, it was a new experience and learning for me. Give me a second. Yeah. So I remember I had gone to take a session in one of the government hospitals, and incidentally in the audience there were people from the Residents Welfare Association, and I didn't know. Like usually you will not be knowing who all are there in the audience. They were all doctors, and the moment I started talking about patients' perspective and other things, they came up with lot of issues that they were facing with their management. Although I tried telling them, see, this is not the platform to discuss all this, but then they literally kind of, disturbed the whole session. Then there was somebody very senior, consultant sitting there who intervened and who said that, all these things can be discussed, later. But that was a very huge learning for me, because this had not happened earlier with me. I said, I have to really learn how do you handle these kind of situations. I told you last time also, in last session also, that I went to do a training with Dale Carnegie on Train the Trainer. It's a Train the Trainer program. It's a 3 days rigorous program that I attended. Now I think they have converted it to 5 days program. I paid 45,000 rupees just to do that 3 days training. It was a huge learning for me. I learned how to, when I say pick your battles, where you should actually get into discussion or argument, and where you should just, let go these things. And then how do you handle people who just pass comments, who have no base, or who would just be there to disturb you or disrupt you. And you will come across this situation when you will actually be doing some training with senior kind of people. I really learned a lot from that. After that training, I had gone to do a training in another hospital. I did around 500 training programs in one go for government sector. So, in government sector, when you're made to attend a program that you're not paying for, you're not very interested, and you always find fault with the trainer or the training. So there was a very senior consultant who just read the caption of my program. The caption was importance of healthcare communication skills in healthcare industry. Importance of communication skills in healthcare industry. And his immediate reaction was, how can you call healthcare an industry? Healthcare is not an industry. I knew now this gentleman is there to, disrupt. And there were people, a lot of people who were just waiting for something like this to happen. And they were sitting on the edge to take his side. I knew I don't have to get into argument with him. In a very soft and easy way, I said, you think this is not the right term, sir? He said, no, you can't call healthcare industry. I said, thank you so much for your input. I'll definitely consider. And I moved on. Had it been like normally, you would fight tooth and nail to prove why you have written this, because you would be convinced with whatever you have written. So these are huge learnings that we get, by working with various groups. And fortunately, I have had experience of working at various places. So, but this is one thing that you really have to master as a trainer. If you can handle the disruptive audience, you can manage most of the things. But even today, a lot of time I make mistakes and I reflect on it and I learn from my mistake. Okay, I should have said this, or I should not have done this. So the whole idea of this session is to equip you with these skills so that you know that you have to do this or you don't have to do this. I'm sharing the screen once again, taking you back to the presentation. Okay, so there are some messages in the, let me see. Okay. So be prepared to handle disagreements. And you see, all of us have different opinion of handling this situation. We'll be discussing it in a while. How do you really go about handling these people? But in general, I think please do not immediately negate, even if you disagree. You can politely, say thank you for your comment or your point of view, and ask others to give their opinion. Usually there will be people who will not agree with this person, and you will see that automatically their question will be negated or answered. But smartly learn to handle the disagreement by adding correct information while appreciating the attempt to reply. Coming to the format of presentation, I think very important thing that we have to keep in mind, please limit the segment to 90 minutes. I know you may be saying that I'm saying 90 minutes, but we are keeping the session for 2 hours. But you will mostly see if we have kept it for 2 hours, I'll make sure that we have some activity, some discussion, so that even these 2 hours are used fruitfully. But in general, I think when you will do your on-site training, try to give them a break after every 90 minutes. Maybe bio break or a cup of tea or maybe some activity, but continuously making them sit and listen to you, it can be slightly boring for them. Make sure that you build activities into each segment, include visuals and hands-on opportunities, provide opportunities for repetition and reinforcement that will kind of reinforce what you're saying. Very important is your own enthusiasm, confidence, and encouragement. If you're able to carry that on throughout the session, you will be able to take your audience with you. During the delivery of your session, integrate evidences of what you are saying. Providing evidence is very important, because when you're dealing with educated audience, they will not just trust you because you are saying this. So you really have to, give evidence of what you are saying. So evidence can be in the form of facts and figures, some data research report. It could be even the newspaper cutting or pictures taken on site, some demonstrations, which includes role plays, skits, videos, illustration, so that they know that what you are saying is not just because you think in this way, but you have, reasons to say this. Then some examples from your own personal experience or some analogies that will kind of create evidence for them. You could even use testimonials and reviews to provide evidence to whatever you are saying. So first is the opening, which we think is the most important part. When you are delivering, there are certain things that you have to keep in mind. Make sure that you integrate evidence to what you are delivering. And part 4 is the closing. So usually when you're closing, it's a good idea to summarize with some takeaways, asking them to repeat what is the important message they have learned. You could ask them for takeaway. You can ask them to do something that will show you, throw a challenge. Okay, go and try this. And if it's not this thing, we can discuss this further. So the idea is closing has to be done in some interesting way so that they take home some message and they try to apply that. Now, what makes a successful facilitator? What do you think? What should be the qualities of the facilitator to be successful? Write in the chat box. Dr. Chakravarti says a good speaker. Yes, I agree. You really need to have good oratory skills. Good knowledge and command on ways of delivering that knowledge. Agreed, Dr. Snehal. Dr. Navanil says good and knowledgeable speaking skills. Agreed. Ability to engage and connect with the audience and not having monotonous presentation. Agreed, Dr. Abhilasha. Wonderful. Should be a good listener. Yes, Dr. Atul. True. Dr. Asim says knows the subject, understand the background of the participants, objectives of the training, good communication skills, problem solving skills. Yes, they're very essential for anybody to be a good facilitator. So in general, I think if we just try to categorize whatever you have said in a couple of points, one thing most important is the facilitator has to be enthusiastic, passionate, and committed to the program. If you are not interested, if you are teaching just for the sake of doing it, it will be visible in your approach. We have all seen disinterested trainers. We have all seen disinterested teachers. And we know that unless you have that contagious enthusiasm, you will not be able to actually conduct a successful program. So you really need to have enthusiasm, passion, and commitment. Then when you will do your programs, initially you will definitely come across, audience who will be judging you, who will be evaluating you, who will not align with you, who will not agree with you. So you really need to have patience and tolerance to ambiguity. There'll be a lot of doubts in the audience mind about you and about your topic or about your program or about your delivery. You don't have to get, confused or upset. If you give your 100%, mostly this ambiguity will get cleared within few minutes. But you have to have that tolerance and not lose your patience. Trainings are, an opportunity to meet new people and have new experiences. Every time there will be a new experience or opportunity, because every time the audience will be different, situation will be different. So if you are one who finds it difficult to, deal with new situations, you may find it difficult to cope up with that. But you really need to be open to new experiences and new people. Rather, proactively, you should be capable of building genuine rapport with your audience. So proactively, you will have to make sure that you are able to align with your audience so that you can align them with you. Also, every training program will be a new experience, new situation. Real situation is always very different from what you have as an imaginary situation in mind. Nothing would be ideal. Sometimes the audio might fail, the other time the projector may not work, another time the audience may be smaller than you expected or larger than you expected. So cognitive flexibility, I think this is something that we are listening now more often. Earlier we said IQ is important. Then we heard EQ plays a very big role in our success. Now people are talking about AQ. What is AQ? Any idea? What is AQ? Agility quotient. Flexibility. More flexible you are, more successful you will be. I think COVID-19 has taught us this. Those of us who were flexible, who adapted to the situation, they succeeded. They actually outperformed in spite of COVID. So as a trainer, as a facilitator, you really need to have flexibility in terms of your cognitive and behavioral ability. Then you will come across people from different cultural background, different practices. Especially with the advent of Zoom, we are even interacting with international audience, and we know people come from different diverse backgrounds. We really need to be respectful to these differences and rather appreciative of these differences. So as a facilitator, we need to remember this and respect these differences. Then a lot of time we share some practices, or we teach and preach certain things which practically may not be possible for the audience to implement as it is. They have their own personal and professional challenges. So as a facilitator, we need to be empathetic and compassionate with them. We can work with them and see what they can do in their existing limitations or situation. But the idea is, you can't just say that, this is what you're supposed to do and you can do. You're not doing because you don't want to do it. So empathy and compassion are very essential. You don't know what is their background, what challenges they're facing in their personal and professional life. Honesty, I think, very important. That's one thing. If you have this integrated in your way of life, it gets displayed. It helps you win your audience trust. That's very essential to make your program successful. So if you tell them something else to do, but in your own professional life, you're practicing something different, trust me, they are not going to follow what you say. So what you tell them to do, you need to practice yourself. You need to be a good role model to your own audience, especially if you're going to do trainings by your own hospital staff. They see you day in, day out. They see your conduct with others day in, day out. So if you are not practicing what you are asking them to do, behave well with others, talk nicely to the patients, attend to the patients' family members in a respectful manner. But if you don't do it, sorry, they are not going to take you. So as a facilitator, you need to really practice those virtues that you are recommending to your audience. Humility, I think more humble we are, more grounded we become, more trustworthy we become. Your audience is observing you. Any element of arrogance, rudeness, or ego, or pride gets, immediately noticed, and it brings down your, image in the eyes of your audience. So very important is to always have this sense of humility all through your interaction and in overall behavior. Sense of humor, I think that's something that one can use in the program, but please remember not to laugh on others. It's always good to make fun of yourself in front of your audience, because the moment you will do this for others, it can, create a disrespectful environment, not desired. But of course, humor should be used with a great care. Only if you're seasoned in using humor, otherwise humor sometimes can misfire, and one should be very careful when you're using humor in your program. I think this is one thing which is of great help. That's personal awareness. All of us have some shortcomings, some hot buttons, some weaknesses, some issues that are very sensitive to us. We need to be aware of them. We need to be mindful of them. We need to work on them on continuous basis. Only then we can see ourselves progressing and becoming better. So knowing yourself is very important, and that's going to help you in improving yourself. So as a facilitator, know your shortcomings, know your weaknesses, know what challenges you are comfortable in handling in the program, what challenges you find difficult to handle, work on them, work on your weaknesses, improve your strengths, and then you can improve yourself as a facilitator. Now coming to the last segment of this session, and that is managing disruptive behavior. We can actually categorize disruptive behavior in 3 categories. The first one is low degree. So in low degree, you will usually have people who are either daydreaming, they have negative body language, they're not participating, they may be using cell phone, they may enter late or leave early in the session, or especially in online program, you will see that they may keep their camera off. The moderate degree of disruption could be where you see them, verbally indicating distrust or disagreement with you. They may even, give conspicuous attention to other work. They are not engaging with you. They are attending to something else. They could indulge in sidebar conversations, or they may actually pass a nasty comment or sarcastic comment on you. The high degree of disruption could be when they display aggressive behavior, either with you or with other participants. They may dramatically exit from the training venue, saying that it's a useless program, I'm not interested, and you are teaching all bullshit. They may even threaten you or to others also. They may pass disparaging remarks towards others or even towards you. So these are the 3 different degrees of disruption that you can observe. In the highest degree, when you see aggressive behavior or them threatening others or to you, I think it's important to communicate to the management and share your concern with them, because something serious can happen. But most of the low and moderate degree of disruption, we should be capable of handling. We should be able to handle. So for example, we can categorize these disruptors in interesting, categories. For example, the first one is talkative. We have categorized them under talkative. So you will see them commenting too often and for too long, and they will try to dominate the discussion. So if I may ask you, how do you handle people who comment too often or for too long and dominate the discussion?
Maybe asking them.
Just 1 second. Give me a second, please. Extremely sorry. Yes, please go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the same thing. Maybe asking a question to them.
Okay. But if you ask a question and if they have the habit of commenting too often, then they are going to take all the more time.
Okay.
No? What do you say?
Yes.
What do others
Or
say? Yeah, go
or
ahead.
maybe by asking question, we can drive them to our whatever discussion going on, and they will be more attentive there when asked.
So see, for example, usually people who do talking, they are actually bubbling with a lot of knowledge and experience. So more questions you will ask them directly, unknowingly, they are likely to take more time to, because they have that knowledge, they have that expertise. But you want everybody to learn, you want everybody to participate. Of course, you want them to share their experience because everybody is going to learn from their experience. But at the same time, you want everybody to engage, everybody to think, because others also have some experience or some knowledge on the subject. So you will often have people, who will come in too often, and they may actually talk for long and dominate the discussion. So to handle them, I think one is that we have to recognize their contribution, because they are actually, contributing to the session. But at the same time, you have to assert that others also must have chance to speak. So maybe what you can do, you can target question to other participants by name, call the other person's name, and then ask the question. So what do you say, Dr. Chakravarti? What do you say, Dr. Abhilasha? What do you say, Dr. Navanin? So when you name the person and talk, ask a question, chances are others will hold on. They will believe that this question is targeted at person so and so. So they will take time to answer. In a real setup, in a physical setup, a live session, avoid making eye contact with the talker after asking a question. So when you ask a question, don't look at them. They will start speaking only when you will look at them. So that way you can give chance to others to speak. And then of course, when the talker pauses, immediately thank him and call on another participant to comment. So in between, when the person who is talking stops to take breath, thank you so much. I think that was a very good point. Let me ask others, what do others say? And you shift the question to the other person. So that's how you can manage the situation. The other category of, disruptor could be interrupters. So interrupters are different from talkative. Talkative people would mostly add to what you are saying, but interrupters may want to either agree or disagree or want to make another point. Again, maybe they are very knowledgeable. Maybe they have more knowledge than even the trainer. But then again, it's your show. So you really need to handle them. So how will you handle them? What do everybody say?
Ma'am, by telling them politely that yes, you are correct, but can we shift to the main point? May I shift to the main point? By telling them like that.
Okay, that's a good way. You taking the attention to the point that we are discussing. Okay.
Yeah.
Anybody else who would like to share their thoughts on this?
You can say that we are parking your question now. When time permits, we will discuss in detail.
Wonderful. That's another seasoned way of handling interrupters. Thank you for that input. Thank you. So actually, if you will have a outline already written on a whiteboard or a flip chart, then all these things we are going to cover. So maybe if this person is making a lot of comments or getting into a lot of argument with you, you can say that I understand that you have a different point of view on this, but I think for the timing, we'll put your questions, we'll park your question, because we need to cover all these things. And if time permits, we will take this question later. So automatically others will say, yes, we have a lot to cover and we can't go on discussing one point and spend so much time on this. And then early in this session, you can tell participants that please note your comments and questions, and we will discuss this at the end of the session. That's another good way of handling them. And then, of course, keep the participant engaged by asking them to complete some interactive learning activities so that they can disturb you less. You could even make them in charge of doing some specific task, asking them to make the recording or maybe writing on the whiteboard. So automatically they will get engaged into the session. The other kind of disruptor could be chatterers. Now, these are the people who will indulge in sidebar conversation. They'll talk to somebody sitting next to them, left or right. How will you deal with them? This was one of the questions in the quiz. Dr. Sabyasachi, how will you deal with this person?
One way of dealing with them could be that like you stop what you are talking and then directly ask them what like if they have something to share, they should share it with the entire group.
So for example, if it's a senior person, and they are engaging in conversation, so you could just stop, giving them an indication, I'm waiting for you to finish. I think you're doing some important talking, so I'm waiting you to finish. What are the other ways? Dr. Navanil, what do you say?
We can ask them to discuss it loudly to the audience also, or like that.
Now again, this we can do with our peer group or maybe younger to us, not with the senior audience. We can't say this to the senior. Very good. We can use this technique, but we can't use it with our seniors. So you're right. We invite them to share the topic that they are discussing with the group. That's one way, but only if there are peer group or are younger to us. Or we could stop talking and look at the chatterer until he is quiet. This can be used. This technique can be used for seniors also, because you're not directly kind of offending them, but in a subtle way you're communicating that I'm getting disturbed. And the third could be restate the point being discussed and ask the chatterer for an opinion. The person is talking, ask their opinion. What do you say? What is your opinion on it? And then engage them into it. Another category is arguer, people who have the tendency to argue. So it could be even without any valid information, they may just want to correct you or argue on it. So how do you deal with them? Dr. Snehal, what do you say? Unmute your device, please.
Sorry. We can listen whatever they are saying, whatever is their point of view, and we can say, yeah, that is also one more point of view. I respect that, but now we are concentrating on this part.
Okay.
Maybe like this, something like this.
Very good. Yes, that means you have to acknowledge, first of all, whatever they are saying. Because if you get into argument, then the whole session will get derailed. So very smartly, you have to thank them for what they are saying. And instead of arguing, move on to the next point. That's another good way. Dr. Asim, what do you say? How would you handle a person who's arguing?
Yeah, you can just think of a Coke bottle. You just open it, some gas will come out, and then it will settle down. So you have to allow that time for the gas to come out, and then says, okay, hope you will give useful points during our further course of discussion. Okay, let us continue.
Yeah. So, for example, if Dr. Asim, you are taking a session, and if somebody is arguing with you, maybe in a very subtle way, you will communicate that, okay, I think we can end it here. But the problem if the facilitator is young and not very experienced, they'll have this, challenge, because there's a possibility that others can hijack your session. I've seen this happening. So it's something very, very, difficult sometimes to handle such people. Like you said, it's always good to acknowledge what they're saying and thank them for their contribution. Allow them to say what they want to say. Find merit, what is good in their point of view, and then move on. Third is, whatever they are saying, ask them to explain the reason. Can you explain it further? Because if it's a baseless comment they are making or baseless issue that they are arguing, then chances are they will not be able to stand their argument. And also, if you'll ask people in the group to respond, mostly people will already be upset and annoyed with this person who is doing too much of argument. So they will say, they will disagree with this person, and usually this person will realize that I have no support in the group. But it's actually a very difficult situation to handle in practical, unless you are thorough with how you would handle it. Another type of disruptors which we often come across is the silent ones, who would just not speak, who would just not participate. How would you handle them, Dr. Navanil? Please unmute your device, Dr. Navanil. Yeah.
Can you repeat the question, ma'am?
I said there's another kind of audience that's called silent ones, who would not just speak, would just sit quietly and would not participate. You can look at the picture and make out.
We can engage them the one-by-one discussion, and we can crack some jokes and with them, so that they'll be more interested and all.
So again, cracking joke with them.
I mean, not. Some other joke with them, not of them. I mean, it's not about them.
I wanted clarity on this. Thank you. Thank you. That's what I meant. If you single them out, if you point them, they are likely to go in further shell and they become resistant to opening up. So I think one idea that you said is absolutely right, that ask them questions so that they get engaged. Ask them the question that you think they can answer easily, so that you can engage them. And never ask question first to them. Maybe you ask a question in the group, ask people to answer that question, and then go to them. If you start from them, your train will stop. It will not go further. So it's always a good idea to ask others to answer and then come to them and ask the question that you think that person will be able to respond, and then respond with positive enthusiasm and appreciation.
Dr. Sumanta has made a nice point in the chat box.
Oh, I'm missing it. Sorry, I'm not able to see the comments. Okay. My chat box is not getting updated.
Okay. Sumanta, can you repeat what you have written?
Actually, I will ask if they are able to understand what about my points. If they are not really make understand, then probably I will repeat that same thing again.
Agreed. Sometimes they are not understanding and they are not participating because of this. So when you ask them, and but again, I think once you are able to engage them, probably slowly they will open up. And of course, clarifying whether am I making sense, is it understandable, is very important. I think this is another kind of disruptors we often see. People start using their electronic devices. They could be using their phone, or they could open their laptop, or they'll be busy doing something. So how do you handle them? Take away their phone? What do you say?
Reminding them the ground rule. That's the first thing.
Okay, that's all. Again, if it's a senior batch, people senior to you, can you tell them, sir, you're not supposed to use the phone?
We can request them.
Okay. So I think you will have to actually choose what will work with what kind of audience. Of course, Right in the beginning, you can say that please keep your phone on silent mode. In case if it is very urgent, please go out and take the call, but keep it very short and brief. Try to avoid if you can avoid, because otherwise you will be disturbing others, and also the flow of the session will be affected. So you are already setting the clear expectation with them. And then, of course, I think one of the good ways is to actually engage them. So have solid strategies to engage them so that they cannot go to their phone. And then a lot of time you will actually ignore and move on, because you can't argue and fight with everyone who picks the call. Maybe if they are taking the call, you can stay quiet for a couple of seconds, indicating that I'm waiting for you to finish the call. Usually that makes the person alert that, okay, because of me, the class is getting disturbed, or the flow of the session is getting disturbed. And usually they'll keep the phone most of the times, if you just stay quiet for a couple of seconds. But then you need to have a lot of patience to practice this, because we usually get annoyed when people attend their phone calls. So the whole idea is that you will have these kind of disruptors. Any category that I have missed here that you have experienced? Or if you wish to share any experience that you have had with the audience and how you managed it.
Sometimes we come across smokers who frequently go out.
Yes. So maybe having some what do you call that, candies on the table, and asking them to, instead of smoking, to take those candies. Maybe, I don't know, but that's a good example. Very good example. So the whole idea is, with these disruptors, I think something that we have to remember is, don't take it personally. Don't take it, oh, my program is a flop. Oh, I'm not a good facilitator. If they're in habit of doing this, they are going to do this. So there's no point getting upset about it. Those who are sleeping, yes. Again, with my MBBS students at Maulana Azad, a lot of time I see my final year students who are going for internship, who are my audience. At times they would actually come from their 24 hours duty and they'll sleep in the class. Then you really have to, there I use a lot of humor and a lot of fun and make things light. I say them, I can see some of your, sleeping. So I'll make them get up, or I just say, do you want to go and have a glass of water? Do you want to get up and, have a walk? Do you need to eat something? So kind of indicating them indirectly so that they kind of become alert. But then, of course, anybody who is feeling sleepy, you can't stop them from sleeping because they are going to sleep. So there's another comment in the chat box, that is, those who are taking selfies. Is it during the session, Dr. Varsha?
Yes, ma'am. During conference, I have experienced, ma'am, that some of the audience sitting at the back side, they were taking selfies, and it was quite distracting.
I know. So maybe, again, you have to pick your battle. If you really want to point out to them, you can say that, can we do this later? Can we? But I think, again, you have to decide on the spot how you want to handle, because practically you will not be able to shout at them or stop them or say something nasty, because you have very limited time in the conference to speak, maybe 5 minutes or 8 minutes. I think best would be to deliver whatever you have to deliver and then come out. I have attended a lot of conferences where I'm called as a speaker, very honestly, a lot to do with ophthalmology, because a lot of ophthalmic conferences I've attended. I mean, I find a huge hall with just handful of audience and very few people interested to, but some of the topics, of course, they attend with interest. So I think the whole idea is, if you have gone to present something, present and come back, and then decide whether you want to do it in future or not, because a lot of time you just waste your time going for it. But the whole idea is that don't take it personally. If they are taking selfie, it doesn't mean that your topic is boring. Avoid arguments, because that's not going to get you anything. Try some empathy, because you don't know what is their perspective or what is their situation. And if you will listen and talk to them, you will actually find something, a very different perspective from them. So any questions about whatever we have discussed, or any comments on whatever we have discussed? I know some of you may be finding this topic, why are we attending this session? But the idea is, if you have to become a master trainer, then this will help you in delivering your program. And why only program? Even your CMEs where you go to speak for few minutes, they can be far more impactful if you integrate these points in your preparation and in your delivery. So,
one observation.
Yes.
Like in some workshops, we delegate some group work to a group of participants. So it's a very common experience to see that in a group of 4 or 5, 1 or 2 will be actively doing something and others will be just almost non-participatory or partially participating.
Yeah.
So,
So
any suggestion on that?
So I experienced something very similar. We used to do role plays with these interns, and we used to divide a batch of 30 students in 4 batches. So 4 batches means at least 7 to 8 participants in each batch. And same thing I observed, that they would only 3 or 4 will be actively participating and 3 or 4 will be just quietly sitting in the background. But for the last couple of years, what I have done, I give them an activity where they are made in pairs. They are made to practice in pairs. So when I make them do activity to practice in pairs, then they have to participate. They have to engage. Also, going from table to table and asking a couple of questions to people who are not participating can help us in engaging them. But just asking them to do something and not supervising, you're right, there's a possibility some of them will just not participate. I prefer using smaller group size. This is what I've learned. Even the patient counseling practice, I made them do in batches. I even removed I kept the relative in some cases, but only maximum 3 people in a group. 1 counselor, 1 patient, and 1 attendant. That's all. And that really worked. And then I made them change their role. Patient would become counselor, and then counselor will become relative, and that's how they will experience all 3 roles. So I've shared the feedback form. You can simultaneously complete the feedback form. I have added a question in the end. I would request you to answer that as well. And meanwhile, any question you have or anything you wish to comment or say or ask, please feel free.
I have a question, ma'am.
Yes, please.
If during a session, if a senior person totally disagree with your point,
yes,
that's a very embarrassing situation, and
okay.
probably he's a very stalwart.
I agree, and I understand what you are trying to say. I think having evidence to what you are saying.
Maybe there may be 2 school of thought.
Yes. Agree to disagree, that's one thing. Have some evidence to substantiate what you are saying. You can even say, sir, this is what is my understanding on the topic, but I respect your words. Let me read more about it and come back to you. And then you can end the discussion. Rather than trying to prove who is right and wrong, you can say, sir, this is from my limited understanding, but you have far more experience and understanding than me. Let me read about it and come back to you, and then you can avoid further argument or discussion. Do you think that can help, Dr. Sumanta? We can try. I think humbleness plays a big role in this. Being arrogant, rude, and argumentative is going to just further spoil the environment. But that was a very good question. Thank you. Interesting question, I would say. So there's a comment by Dr. Abhilasha who says, but ma'am, that cannot be a solution in every scenario. Yes, of course. I'm not saying that this is the only answer that will work. So you will have to be really innovative in handling this situation. The idea is not to find a answer to what he's saying, right or wrong, but idea is to end the conversation in a healthy manner and not kind of get into any argument, because ultimately even with argumentation, you will not get anything. I completely understand what you're saying. So I've received 5 responses as of now, waiting for others to complete. Write in the chat box if you have completed so that I know who all have finished. Write yes in the chat box. Extremely sorry. I've received 7 responses. Should I wait or close the session? I'm waiting for 2 more people. Dr. Sumanta, I think you have not yet given your response. And Dr. Yeah, Dr. Supanta, you have not answered, I think. Yet not. Are you doing it, Dr. Sumanta? Are you working on it? Should I wait for you or close the session?
Ma'am, done. Ma'am, done.
Okay.
Ma'am,
Thank you.
done.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah. So I think we'll close the session here. Thank you so much for participating. And let's meet next Friday. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So I'll be sharing an interesting questionnaire with all of you in the group. And I would request everybody to do it very carefully, because that's a very interesting, questionnaire, and it will tell you about yourself. So you'll enjoy it while doing it. I'll share the questionnaire with you and do it carefully and keep the responses ready with you in your notebook. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Bilasha. Thank you, Dr. Snehal, for your.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, everyone.